Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to another live stream. This is IPSA Kind of Magic. IPSA, the Independent Personal Search Agents. It's an association currently chaired by Hamish, of which Val is closely associated, and we are here to talk about the whys and wherefores, searching, and why one size doesn't fit all. One size, I can't even speak, put my teeth back in. One size fits none. Not all LA searches are created equal, LA being local authority. Hamish, would you care to start us off?
Well, it seemed to me there's been a sort of, we've had one of those strange years this year that was not typical. Well, not since 2022, that is. We've had a big upsurge, a great demand on our property lawyers and conveyancers generally to actually get a number of searches, or I should say, a number of transactions over the line before the end of April, before the end of March, and of course all of that happened, and then some tremendous hard work, working all sorts of idiotic hours from the poor old solicitor's perspective to try and actually sort of make sure that the stamp duty was actually sort of managed to sort of be at the reduced rate rather than the new rate that was introduced on April 1st. Did it happen for everybody? No, it didn't happen for everybody. It wasn't possible. But if you put it this way, a darn sight more happened because of the hard work that that was put in by the conveyancing lawyers, or the conveyancers and the lawyers. However, there was a significant amount of support. And if you actually spoke to any of the IPSA members during that period of time, you'd find they were seriously busy as well. And they were seriously busy actually getting in and out as quick as they could to the local authorities, or getting the information downloaded from the local authorities to get that passed off. And one of the great advantages which we've had, and there's some amazing sort of time frames that some of our members were able to actually return those searches within, because of the relationship. And this actually demonstrated to us, it was just a reminder. And as we sort of paused to a certain extent, although I was looking at some numbers earlier today, and our numbers aren't down at all. They seem to be even higher this month than they were last month. But what it was a great reminder of is, when we look at what is happening on, if you like, throughout the industry, there seems to be constantly arriving on the scene more and more people wanting to offer local authority searches. And they come in all sorts of different guises, and they're very often, they are disenfranchised. And when I mean disenfranchised, they were working sometimes for franchise operations, many of which were bought out. And they're coming back into their own now and setting their own businesses up in all sorts of different sort of ways, using numerous different types of ways of adapting themselves. However, they seem to be following a very similar route. And we call them factory conveyancers. They're normally corporate providers. They're high volume providers at any rate. And they tend to have just one format that they will actually sort of use. They sit at the desktop and they return searches. And that's how they actually sort of do it. Now, what we've found over the years, and one of the interesting things is that having Val with us today, which is always a privilege having Val along, she would have seen, since she first started operating, and how local authority searches were handled right at the very start when she first started doing them, compared to the way it's handled now. It really is, almost looking back to when aeroplanes first took flight to where they are actually sort of now, I would imagine, because I wasn't there in the, there were the light ages actually rather than the dark ages, but Val can actually sort of tell us. But what we're trying to say is, rather like the number of people who want to buy and move into a property, they are all different.
As the keener-eyed will notice, we also promote the First Time Buyers Club, who work very closely with IPSA members. But Val, do follow on from Hamish there, please. Let us learn from your interesting experiences, please.
Oh my God! dark ages. Obviously, it was a totally different ball game, and we started off when there was, a handful of agents were around, and it literally was a little cottage industry, and you kept everything to yourself. You didn't want to share where you got your information from. It was all very secretive, and you went out, you did your work, and you got the searches done for the solicitors, who were at the time having to wait up to 3 and 4 months for the council, because even back then it was still no different. You still had councils who couldn't turn them around quick enough. And over the years, there's been, monumental changes. And every year, it always seemed that there was somebody like trying to either get at us or come take everything away from us. They wanted to come into the industry and thought they could change it overnight. We can sort this out. We can make it all work better. And, HMLR and many, many other of the online providers now, they all thought they could make it better and change it. But what I tend to find now is that a lot of the big corporate type companies tend to think of searches as an add-on to whatever it is that they do and they make their money on, whether it be insurance or whatever other software and things they provide. Searches seem to be a secondary thing almost, as though they don't realize the importance of them, when to me they're the most important thing. I'm not bothered about insurance. I don't sell insurance because I'm not bothered, but I sell searches because to me that's the important thing. But yeah, so we've seen people come and go. We've seen hit packs come and go. All the cowboys that came along when we had hit packs. I'm sure you remember, Hamish, and I do apologise. Probably not a PC word to you. But they all came and joined the merry throng thinking they could do it. And then PCCB came about, who said, you can't all do this. You all need to be examined and tested and checked to make sure you actually know what you're doing, which was a pain in the bum in some ways, but it was also good because it did weed out the bad guys. So yeah, it does change. And I think every year there's always something new. Everybody always thinks they can make it better and not realize the complexity of it all.
Well, that's incredible. Hamish, your thoughts?
Well, I think this has actually been almost a godsend to IPSA members, because we can actually sort of see, and we know because of the experience of Val and many people like Val who entered the industry in those early days. And I think we've said this before. This has enabled relationships to have been built. What is interesting, we've got, I think it's 5 or 6 different members of our organization who in fact are second generation completions, because when we look at Val, for example, it wasn't Val that actually first started working with the searches, it was her father. And we have a number of other people who have sort of second generations, and some of them we've got the first and second generations working together, which in my case we actually sort of happen to have. But we're very, very fortunate in this respect because we can carry that experience with us. But I mention that because it does mean between us as a cooperative working together, we have that sort of tremendous level of experience, which is why it's good having people right the way throughout England and Wales to look at each of the councils that they've been working with sort of over the years to look at the differences. Because what we've actually found, when we sort of hear this sometimes, they say, oh, it's data, IT's the way forward, AI's the way forward. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a fantastic addition to what we do. However, you cannot take out the human element. What we've got at this particular sort of moment in time is information coming from more places than ever. And Val, I'm sure, can tell us. I mean, I'll just go through what it is at the moment, and Val can tell us where the information used to come from. What we have actually sort of now, we have to go to the local authority to actually sort of get information. We sometimes have to actually follow that up by actually going to the county council. We also have to go to land registry to actually collect the information. So we've got 3 different sort of areas where we can gather information from. Land Registry, of course, are picking up information from local authorities, but they do not know yet what information or how that information is collected, and what it actually genuinely means. They're just a collection service, basically. They buy it in and sell it on. So they can only take on board what they are given. And as we've said before, garbage, the good old garbage in, garbage out. It isn't garbage, but it's not necessarily 100% correct. This is where.
But if it's not 100% correct, how can you rely upon it? Data is the fundament of everything you do, and if you're relying on data that you know potentially is skew-if, doesn't that make the whole thing suspect?
It probably does. But where did we start off, though, Val?
Well, back in the day, I mean, don't forget, I mean, there's 350 councils plus various other county councils. And every one of those councils operates a completely different system. Not one council is the same as another. And within each of those councils, we have to get our information from 3, 4, 5 different departments or 5 different sets of resources. So when you suddenly think, so that's 1,500 different contacts that if we're covering the whole country, which most of us do now, one way or the other, there's 1,500 contacts or bits of information and contacts that we have to be able to get the information we need. So that's kind of how it starts off at the beginning. So at the beginning, in the mid-80s, when we actually had to go round to each council that we went to, it was very important that we built up contacts with other people that did like we did. So over the years, as you say, when IPSA came about, so we were able to then be in touch with other agents in other part of the country. And that's incredibly important for us. I think you'd agree, Hamish, wouldn't you? That
Absolutely.
we have to have the contacts, not necessarily to go, can you do this search for me? But sometimes to go, have you done this before? Do you know this? What do you know about this in your area? I had a call this morning. Val, we need a really urgent Rossendale search. After I'd finished laughing, I went, you've not got a chance whatsoever. Even I can't sort that out. It's like beyond everybody's means. It can't be done. They want a search within 2 to 3 weeks. They're not going to get it for 4 or 5 weeks. It's impossible because land charges there will not under any circumstances give us information. And this person who was speaking to, I'm not going to name any names, but did sort of say, and they were, well, it's an established semi-detached house. So it's probably only got a smoke control order on it. What do you think? And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You could have trees, you could have disability grants, you could have financial charges, you could have X, Y, and Z. I said, and this is a search agent that has not been around for very long, I will admit. And I said, if you want to guess at what your replies will be, then you go ahead and guess them, but I'm not going to guess them for you. I'm not going to do that because part of our job is that we can't guess at what's on the record or on the register. I think, again, you'll agree to that, Hamish. But this is somebody who's, yeah, but it's the client slightly desperate for it. And I'm like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't make up or pretend what we think the answers will be because we don't know what it is. And these are also the risks that get taken when you do get newer agents or newer people that think they can kind of skip things, or they go, well, the house next door said this, so it will be the same. Never. And you've got to trust the people that are doing the searches. Yes, we can all say we've got insurance. I mean, touch wood, thankfully, in all the years, I've never had to use my insurance, I'm glad to say. But I'm not prepared to kind of make up the answers for anybody either and guess what I think it might be, just because a solicitor has left it too late to get the searches done. So these are the things that do happen as well. But then somebody else gave me a phone call this morning. I need a really urgent Hackney search. Hackney is one. They sent in for a search 8 months ago.
Bloody hell.
8 months. They haven't got it back. Yes, we can do a limited search. They know it's limited because they had massive IT issues a couple of years back. So hopefully we can actually sort it out and get it back to them in a week or so. They're very, very happy. But 8 months ago, they applied for search. So heaven knows what happens in Hackney. So all these things are the things that kind of come to try us as well along the way that we have to contend with. But I do think the importance of having the network of IPSA, the network of having established agents who do know what's going on and what we can expect to find, because now we don't have the land charges officers that we used to have, who were the ones that knew the colour of the curtains and they knew what time Mary had a cup of tea and they knew everything about the district that they worked in. And now you've got the younger generation who don't really kind of get what we get, and no respect to them because they do a great job, but they're data people. They are computer and data people. They don't remember when it was Kalamazoo and box files and everything else.
Kalamazoo.
And you don't quite get it, so I'll be quiet again now because I know I'm blabbering away.
we have you on here so that your so-called blabbering is actually full of very useful stuff. Hamish, I know that sometimes we hanker at the ways of old, and there's nothing wrong with that. But surely it's a mix of the modern data gathering with the localized knowledge.
I think this gives a great advantage because when you've had, I'm fortunate. I mean, I haven't worked in the industry until the start of this century, whereas Val, of course, was working sort of last century. And it does make one wonder when we look at the councils, and like sort of Val says, how can Rochdale, or how can, I mean, in many cases, you can't actually put the total responsibility to the office necessarily itself, because nobody's jollied them along. It's just assumed within the council. It's assumed, oh, they know what they're doing, and just let them get on with it. They're not funded or anything. They have no money there. Their staff have been reduced. The number of staff they have hasn't sort of kept up with the amount of data they now need to sort of handle. And of course, land registry is taking away some of the income that the councils used to have as well. So the combination of an awful lot of things. One of the great advantages of the consistency of the members of our organisation is the fact that they know when stuff's been switched to land registry. They know when councils are becoming unitary authorities and joining together and amalgamating. They know when the officers are leaving, the land charges officers are leaving. And in many cases, and I mean, Val probably laughs at this on occasions, that the age of those who are coming in and taking charge of land registry and think they somehow know what's sort of going on, and of course they do, because they're handling the data, but they don't know how where that data came from in the first place. So the big thing is the consistency of somebody who's actually worked in the industry. The data control of it, they're using software for it. There's some fantastic savings we can make in certain aspects of it. But like you emphasized earlier, Gareth, we cannot necessarily guarantee the information that's coming to us all the time. So it does need to be refined. And that, again, is where that local knowledge actually sort of comes into us. So as Val said, she's got something, mind you, she's driven to Newcastle before now and sort of carried out searches at Newcastle. There's very few places Val hasn't driven to. However, but she knows, if you like, somebody we can rely on, as do I, of course, that they can carry out searches for us in Newcastle. They know what's right. They know where the information should actually sort of be put, and they know where it comes from, so they get it right. So we're fortunate in that respect. It really is a great collective that we have that enables us to actually provide searches to our solicitor clients, and of course the too.
Before I wind this up, I just wanted to say that the very fundament of IPSA is not just relying on what you read in downloads and so on, but also relying upon the personalized relationships that have been built in each locality by a different IPSA member. And this means that the right people for the job will be the most local IPSA member to where the search is being taken place. Now, the fact that they work together as a cooperative and not in competition with each other means that they'll hand you over to the right person who's better than them. I find that both unique and reassuring, and it's perhaps what makes the difference about using IPSA. As I did say before, we are supported by the First Time Buyers Club. It's very kind that they're associated with us, but we also work with IPSA works with a number of other, including WikiWam and so on, where you will find a lot of video content, including this video today, will pop up shortly. Hamish, would you take us home?
Well, yeah, when we actually say that, don't forget the YouTube channel as well. But that's all in the words attached to. You'll actually find all of that and be able to do it. But no, thanks again for Val with a great contribution, because
Thank you, Val.
It's reassuring that we have this basis, and this basis will continue. That's what makes IPSA what IPSA is. And our members will be hearing about. We've got a 20th year, 20 years of celebration, or anniversary, I should say, coming up this year. So we'll be hearing about that, as will those of outside of IPSA that if they want to support us, I'm sure they will. They're more than welcome to support us. But yes, it's sort of great to be able to celebrate not just the 20 years, but the fact that we have an organisation that supports so many people within the property industry.
And thank you once again, Hamish McClay of Search Convey, and of course Val Bennett of Home Information Searches. And from myself to all of you, thank you very much for staying with us. There's plenty more to come, of course. Every Wednesday, yet another IPSA related story, and hopefully I will take you with us. Keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please try and look after that mental health. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye.